everybody, and welcome to my channel. My name's Tessie, and this is Homestead Tessie's Mobile Home Living. Prairie now is something that hindsight 2020 would tell you it's time to prepare. In the past, we've had some good years, and in those years I was stocking up and preparing because things could get bad. Now, I'm not a doom and gloom channel. That's not what I'm about. But I do want to share with you ways that you can protect yourself in times of need, in times of struggle. I've shared with you in many videos about first aid and having first aid on hand. I shared with you in many videos about having other things that are not food, having them on hand. I stress highly about having solar lights and oil lanterns and all of these things. One of the things I like to prep for is cheese sauce. Now, I know this isn't for everyone. This is not a USDA recommended way of canning, but we do it, and there's thousands of videos online where it teaches you how to can cheese. Why would you want to can cheese? Well, this is cheese, nacho cheese, so it is pasteurized to begin with, and it's a cheese byproduct, but it's good to have it on times of need because cheese is something that requires refrigeration or it requires to freeze it. Let's just say if the grid went down, this way you would have a little bit of dairy in your system and you could use it for food, and it would help pass your food. It would help season your food much better. Another thing that's overlooked is herbs. We need to have herbs and salt. So we're gonna have salted herbs, and that can really help bland food. I'm talking about if there would be an economic collapse or a grid down situation, or even, who knows, if we can't leave our houses due to a virus or anything like that. We need to prepare our homes for in place of staying in case we cannot go out and do the things that we're used to doing. So we want to work on herbs as well. Also, jams and jellies. Now, why is jam and jelly so important, you ask? Well, because if sugar and things like that would be very hard to find, a little sweetener would help sustain your energy. If we're thinking of a time when things could get really bad, we will need our energy because we will have to be doing a lot of things by hand. What happens if we don't have electricity? Well, cleaning and bathing and washing our clothing, all of these things have to be done by hand, which requires a lot of energy. So having jams and jellies on your shelf is something so simple, so easy, and a tablespoon of that a day would help sustain you. There's a lot of ways that we can prep. Dollar Tree is your best friend right now because you can get dried beans, you can get rice for $1. And we're gonna go to the Dollar Tree and I'm gonna get some beans because we have to can that as well today. And canning that is so cheap and frugal. It's a way that you can have beans already made. A lot of people ask me, why would you go to all the trouble of canning something if you could store it just in the dry form? Many reasons. What happens if we don't have electricity and the beans are dry? It would take hours to soak those beans, to cook those beans. If you have it already canned, it's ready to eat right as it is out of the jar. Water, what happens if things get hard and it's hard to find water? Well, your beans have already been soaked and already been cooked. And so all you have to do is throw those beans over an open fire and you have a meal. Don't keep a lot of dried things that require a lot of water, other than rice, because cook them ahead of time if you possibly can and can them. Canning is your best friend. It's getting really hard to find lids. If you find lids, stock up now because lids are something you will need for the future. About 10 years ago, I found a really old Mennonite Amish cookbook. And in that cookbook, it said about canning Velveeta cheese. This is a method that most Mennonite farms and Amish farm wives, they can Velveeta cheese. Now, this is nacho cheese sauce. And so it's basically like Velveeta cheese. And so I started canning it. And I really enjoy it. Now, it's not USDA regulated. In other words, USDA would not say this might be the proper way of canning. But I pressure can it, and I feel real confident in the way that I preserve my food. But this is not for everyone. But this is one way that you can preserve food, and it can last you many years. If you're really interested in this way of preserving food, I will share with you at the end of this video the link to a detailed presentation of how to can cheese. Now, I based it off the Starry Hilder's, her recipe, but I pressure can mine. And you can go and look at her recipe if you want to do it another way, but I do pressure can everything that is low acid. Even my butter I pressure can. And I feel by pressure canning, that gives it a much safer way of preserving your food. But this is how Granny did things. You know, Granny did things a little different than what we do in the modern day and age. And you have to take everything with a grain of salt, like my mom would say, and decide if it's something that you would like to try for yourself. So many people remark about my pantry and how they feel like it's like a little general store. It's like going to an old-fashioned country store. And that is such a beautiful compliment for me because I love my pantry. My pantry is based on old 1800s way of doing things. And while we do have the modern equipment that I use with pressure canners, I do like implementing the old way of doing things as well, with storing food and herbs and things like that. This is how Granny would have done it. Granny would have hung her herbs, hung them up on the rafters to have them dry. And this is the way I enjoy doing things. And you will see me time and time again make my own cleaners. I use a lot of rubbing alcohol because it does kill germs, and I use a lot of essential oils. Now this would be something would be considered more modern, but in the old days Granny would have used vinegar, but I just detest the scent of vinegar. But I love having things, you know, the old way. So rubbing alcohol, Granny would have had rubbing alcohol. She would have used it for other items. She would have used it for liniment to help make salves and things like that. But this is another thing we do. We make our own cleaners, adding rosemary and all of our own essential oils. And this really is another way that you can just get away from the grocery store and get away from the commercialized way of living. This is so much better doing it this way. This way you're not running to the grocery store and buying cleaners that are synthetic in nature. I'm extremely blessed in the way of having a lot of documentation of my husband's family and my family. I'm very blessed in having a lot of recipe books, handwritten journals. This one is from 1896. I have a lot of things from my family, which is so special to me, and I think you're going to see from now on, my videos are going to implement a lot of my family history. A lot of the things that I was taught, a lot of the things that were instilled in our families ever since we were born. And so history is going to come alive on my channel in many ways. So whether you're seeing recipes or my granddaughter wearing a dress my mother made in the old-fashioned way, it's doing more than just teaching her by word. It's showing her in tangible ways that how you can live a sustainable life that really respects the older generation and respects the roots where you came from. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.